The invitation to my family's annual Christmas dinner sat on my desk, its gold embossing catching the morning light. Next to it lay the latest copy of Forbes magazine, the one with my environmental consulting firm featured on the cover, though my face was carefully turned away from the camera. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Dr. Wright?" My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The Morgan Development Group is here for their emergency consultation." I smiled, knowing exactly who would be walking through my door. "Send them up, Alice." 5 years ago, my family had laughed when I chose to pursue a PhD in environmental science instead of joining my father's real estate development company. Now that same company was facing environmental catastrophe, and they had no idea they were about to beg for help from the daughter they mocked. The memory of that Christmas dinner was still sharp as a thorn. I'd just been accepted into Stanford's environmental science program, ready to share my dreams of sustainable development with my family. Environmental science? My sister Victoria had snorted into her wine glass. "What are you going to do with that, Sophia?" "Hug trees." My father hadn't even looked up from his phone. "If you want to waste 4 years studying plants, that's your choice. But don't expect a position at Wright Development when you're done." "It's not just about plants," I tried to explain. "It's about sustainable development, environmental impact assessment, protecting." "Protecting what?" My brother-in-law James had cut in. "Profit margins, because that's what matters in real estate, not some hippie crusade about saving the planet." Victoria had nodded smugly. "At least someone in this family understands business. James just closed that deal on the River Valley project." "How many millions was that again, darling?" "The River Valley project. If they'd only known then what that development would lead to. If they'd only listened when I tried to warn them about building on protected wetlands. But they hadn't listened. They never did." I'd left that dinner feeling like an alien in my own family. The next day, my father had called to make one final attempt at talking sense into me. "This environmental nonsense isn't a real career, Sophia," he'd said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Victoria and James are already managing major projects. Meanwhile, you want to spend your time worrying about endangered frogs." I'd held my ground. "Someone has to worry about them, Dad. And someone has to make sure development doesn't destroy everything in its path." He'd hung up without saying goodbye. That was the last real conversation we'd had. I'd gone to Stanford, earned my PhD, and built my consulting firm, Eco Environmental Solutions, from the ground up. I kept my identity private, using my mother's maiden name professionally, letting my work speak for itself. And what work it was! In 5 years, ECO had become the most respected environmental consulting firm in the country. Major corporations paid millions for our assessments. Government agencies saw our expertise. When development projects faced environmental challenges, ECO was the first call they made. My family never connected Dr. Sophia Bennett, the reclusive founder of ECO, with their misguided daughter who'd chosen endangered frogs over real estate empires. But that was about to change. Through my office window, I watched my father's company car pull up to the building. Victoria and James would be with him. They always traveled as a unit when crisis struck. And this was definitely a crisis. The River Valley project, their biggest development to date, had hit a devastating snag. The protected wetlands they'd ignored in their planning were fighting back. Sinkholes had started appearing in their luxury housing sites. Protected species were surfacing in their construction zones. Environmental groups were threatening lawsuits. They needed ECO's help to save their billion-dollar project. More specifically, they needed my help, though they didn't know it yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "This better not take long. These environmental consultants are all the same, tree huggers looking for payouts." I took a deep breath, remembering all the times she'd dismissed my passion as worthless. All the times James had made jokes about my squirrel-saving degree at family events. All the times my father had held up their success as proof that I'd chosen the wrong path. "Dr. Bennett will see you now," Alice's voice announced through the intercom. I stood up, smoothing my expertly tailored suit, a far cry from the tree hugger outfit they probably expected. Through my office's glass walls, I could see them being led down the hallway. My father's confident stride, Victoria's designer heels clicking on marble, James' impatient fidgeting with his Rolex. They had no idea they were about to walk into a meeting with the daughter whose career choices they'd ridiculed for years. The daughter who now held the fate of their billion-dollar project in her hands. Time to show them exactly what an environmental science degree could do. I heard Victoria's voice before they entered my office. I hope this Dr. Bennett understands we don't have time for endless environmental studies. The River Valley project is worth. She froze mid-sentence as they walked through the door. My father stopped so abruptly that James nearly crashed into him. Sophia, Victoria whispered, her perfectly made-up face draining of color. Hello, family. I remained seated behind my desk, enjoying their shocked expressions. Though I believe you're here to see Dr. Bennett. My father's face went through a rapid series of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, anger. You're Dr. Bennett, the founder of Echo Environmental. The same. I gestured to the chairs in front of my desk. Shall we discuss the River Valley situation? I understand you're having some issues with protected wetlands. James found his voice first. This is ridiculous. You can't be the world's leading environmental consultant. I finished for him, pushing forward a copy to Forbes. The expert whose firm you desperately need to save your billion-dollar project. I'm afraid I am. Victoria sank into a chair, her designer outfit suddenly seeming like costume jewelry. All this time, Echo Environmental was you. Surprised? I opened a folder containing their project details. Amazing what you can accomplish with a useless environmental science degree, isn't it? My father remained standing, his face darkening. If this is some kind of revenge. Revenge? I laughed softly. Dad, if I wanted revenge, I would have let your project collapse. I would have testified for the environmental groups suing you. Instead, I'm going to help you fix this mess. Though it won't be cheap or easy. I stood up, walking to the wall of screens displaying data from the River Valley site. You built on protected wetlands, ignored endangered species habitats, and violated at least 6 environmental protection statutes. The sinkholes appearing in your luxury housing sites, that's what happens when you drain wetlands without proper environmental assessment. James shifted uncomfortably. We followed all the required procedures. The bare minimum required by law. I corrected him, which is exactly what I warned you about 5 years ago, not that any of you listened. Victoria's eyes widened. The Christmas dinner, when you tried to tell us about sustainable development. When you were all too busy mocking my career choice to hear what I was actually saying, I finished. Now here we are. I pressed a button, bringing up detailed maps of their project site. The good news is, ECO can help you salvage this project. The bad news? It will require completely redesigning your development plan, implementing extensive environmental protection measures, and probably losing about 30% of your buildable area to wetland preservation. 30%? My father's voice rose. That's impossible. The profit margins are not my concern. I cut him off. This is what it will take to make your project legally compliant and environmentally sustainable. Take it or leave it. I handed each of them a thick folder. These are Echo's terms. Our consulting fee is $5 million, non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide. Victoria flipped through the documents, her hands trembling slightly. $5 million? That's less than you'll lose if those environmental lawsuits go through, I pointed out. Much less than you'll lose when the whole site becomes unbuildable due to subsidence from damaged wetlands. My father finally sat down, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Why didn't you tell us? About Echo, about all of this. Would you have listened? I asked quietly. When have you ever listened to anything I had to say about environmental protection? James cleared his throat. The other projects we've developed since River Valley, have we been making the same mistakes? Oh, much worse ones, I smiled. But we can discuss those after you sign Echo's contract for this project. Victoria let out a shaky breath. All those times we laughed about your degree, and now you're the only one who can save our biggest project. Ironic, isn't it? I returned to my desk. The tree hugger with the worthless degree is now charging you $5 million to fix problems I tried to warn you about for free. My father stared at the contract for a long moment. We were wrong about you, Sophia, about all of it. Yes, you were. I met his eyes steadily. The question is, are you ready to start listening now? One by one, they signed the contract. As they stood to leave, thoroughly humbled, I called out, "Oh, and Victoria." She turned back, trying to maintain what was left of her dignity. About what you texted earlier, how environmental consultants are all tree huggers looking for payouts. You're right about the payout part. Echo's wire transfer details are on page 6. After they left, I returned to my window, watching their expensive cars pull away from my building. My assistant appeared with a glass of champagne. "Congratulations on landing the Wright development account," she said, smiling. Though I suspect this was about more than just business. I took the glass, remembering that Christmas dinner when they'd laughed at my dreams. Sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about being so right that they have no choice but to pay you millions to fix their mistakes. The next family Christmas dinner was different. Gone were the snide comments about my career choice. Instead, my family members hummed on my every word about environmental protection and sustainable development. Victoria had even enrolled in some environmental management courses. My father, he completely restructured Wright Development's approach to environmental impact, making Echo their exclusive environmental consultant. It cost them millions, but saved them billions in potential disasters. And me? I finally let Forbes photograph my face for their follow-up article. Dr. Sophia Bennett, How the Tree Hugger Became Real Estate's Environmental Savior. Sometimes at night, I look out from my office at the city lights, thinking about how life comes full circle. My family had mocked my passion for environmental science, only to end up desperately needing that very expertise. The view from the top isn't about looking down on those who doubted you. It's about seeing clearly enough to help them avoid the pitfalls they never believed in. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just success. It's success so essential that the people who mock you have to write you 7-figure checks just to stay in business. The daughter they dismissed as a tree hugger now sets environmental standards for the entire industry. That's not just revenge. That's evolution.